All right, so this morning I'm just going to share with you a few fire safety tips with of information surrounding fire, some safety tips, what to do, what not to do, and how we can become more fire safe. All right, no one has ever experienced a fire before, right? Terrible one. Sorry about that. After today, I don't think you'll ever have to worry about having a fire again. All right? Because you'll be prepared mentally for one, as well as you'll have some safety tips that will help you to prevent a fire from starting. Right? Apart from the fires that we start in terms of cooking, keeping ourselves warm, um, providing light, we want to minimize the amount of fires that we have that can cause chaos. All right? And as we speak about fire, does anyone really know what a fire is? Apart from seeing it and probably feeling it. Feel it, right? All right, so one of the terms that they use in terms of talking about fire, it's really a chemical reaction that really gives off heat and light, right? Other combustion byproducts. You may see smoke, right? And we all know that, sorry, I sweat a lot, all right? And we all know that smoke is not really good for us, right? If you're in a fire situation and, for example, you should have some amount of smoke, if you're sleeping, God forbid, it means that you probably will end up continue sleeping. Because when it comes down to fire and the carbon monoxide that it gives off, it will put you into a deeper sleep. All right, and that is why we will have smoke detectors and we'll have some amount of devices that can help us to detect fires from an early stage, and it will also help us to wake up, probably use our fire extinguishers if we do have one, or the thing that we have most readily available. What is that? Water. Right? It's not just your tool that is readily available. It's also the fire department's major or the most used extinguishing medium from the fire department or for the fire department, because you say it's cheap. When NWC wants to be lenient, and it is readily available because it's all around us, right? So again, a fire is really uh, rapid oxidation or a chemical reaction or a series of reaction that will start a fire or lead to one of those continuation. All right. But in order to have a fire, there are three things that we must have present. Three things. Who said that? Who said oxygen? One. Who else? Give me another one. Fuel. Give me another one. Heat, right? Heat source. So something to ignite it. All right. And we have heat present all around us. Outside is really hot. Oxygen is there. And of course, we have fuel on the outside. But why aren't we constantly having fires? Or why aren't we having a fire outside now? Not really. Who said that? Let me see if I know his face. No, not yet. All right, chemical reaction is needed. All right. So no matter how much heat you may have, no matter how much fuel, and the oxygen is all around us, if you don't have those three elements coming together in its right proportion, you will never have a fire. As well as there must be a chemical reaction taking place. So you must have heat, you must have oxygen, and you must have fuel. Now, if we have all three of those elements present, ready to go, right? How can we extinguish these things? Because if you need three things to start it, there are three ways to extinguish it. Fire extinguisher. Well, you can use a fire extinguisher to extinguish it, but how does it put out the fire? By what means? Fire blanket. Yeah, those are some tools you can use. Starve it. So you starve it, but it's not really oxygen that you starve. You take away one of the elements. All right. So if you have heat, what's the best way to get rid of heat? Cool it. So you can throw some water on it, right? So you cool it. In terms of fuel, how do you get rid of fuel? Remove it. Anybody usually roast breadfruit? Anybody know about roasting breadfruit? When the breadfruit are almost roast, what you normally do? Pull out some of the wood, right? So if there's a fire and you want to get rid of the fuel, you take away the fuel source. So you take away all. I don't know if you watch the news sometimes and you see where firefighters are at scene and people tell us, boy, fireman come late. Lies. Lies. We're always there on time. Because when we get the call, we go. All right? But you usually see people in distress with furnitures on the outside, sidewalk, wherever. We're happy for those things, you know. Not that the fire is burning, but we're happy that they managed to take out some of the stuff because it means that they removed some of the fuel for us, right? They would have started starving that fire of fuel. All right, so if you remove the fuel, you starve the fire. All right, what about the oxygen element? How you get rid of oxygen? Carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide carbon dioxide is one way, but how do you apply carbon dioxide to it? From the extinguisher. All right, this is a simple one. If you're home cooking, right, frying pan, kick up. What do? You cover. Who said water? No, no, my friend, that is one of the worst things you could ever do. All right, don't put water, especially if it's oil. You don't put water on it. All right. So you cover it, and that will eliminate the oxygen component, which is called smothering. All right. So for the heat, we cool it. For the oxygen, we smother it, and for the fuel, we starve it. All right. So we smother, we cool, and we starve. And we say the three elements needed for fires: oxygen, fuel, and you cannot have a fire if there isn't any. My friend down here, what you said it earlier on, chemical reaction. All right. All right. So we're moving along nicely, but having those fires or having those elements present, there are different ways that fires can spread. Right? There are four different ways. Well, four main ways that we usually speak about: conduction, convection, radiation, and direct flame contact. Now, if you're going to have a fire where it's going to spread by, say, conduction, we may have a fire taking place somewhere around the back, but you realize that somewhere around the side might be on fire as well. It means that the fire would have been moving through some element. Most times it's metal, steel, something that can hold a lot of heat. So it moves from one place to a next without you actually seeing it because it's moving through the element. All right, and that is really conduction. So it's a solid material, it's moving through a solid material. So, for example, you have a garbage bin. You have a fire at one end of the bin, and you have a piece of metal placed on some combustible items. You don't have to put the fire directly onto those combustible items. Once enough heat is transferred through that metal to the combustible item, it might become on fire just the same. And that is what we call convection. All right, so the fire jumping from one place to the next, moving through an element. In terms of convection, it's really moving through water or heat or steam rather. Right? If you're boiling some water, you realize that bubbles normally come up, see, rotate and go down. So what's really happening is that the cooler water is moving to the bottom while the hot one is moving up. And that is how you have heat transfer through convection. In terms of radiation, it's very hot outside. The sun is really miles and miles away, and we feel it right here just like it's beside us, right? So that is radiation. And of course, direct Flame contact is you really placing flames onto the combustible items. All right. So it's four ways that heat is transferred: convection, conduction, radiation, and direct flame contact. All right. And of course, apart from how heat is transferred, you have different types of fires. And different type of fires requires you to put it out in different ways. So we have my friend around the back. How many classes of fires do we have? Four, five. Can you name them? Their letters: A, B, C, and D, and well, we normally go down to about K. So A, B, C, D, and K. All right. So the class A fires are what we call the ordinary combustibles, like your wood, paper, cloth. Those things will burn. Those are your ordinary combustibles, and those are your class A fires. Do you have a fire extinguisher here? Do you have a fire extinguisher? I would like to borrow one. If you. So your class A fires are ordinary combustibles, right? Your wood, paper, cloth, those things. For your class B fires, those are liquefiable solids, right? Like your gasoline and those things that will burn, liquefiable solids. Your wax, your candles, all right? For your class C fires, there's an American standard and there's a British standard. Who is any Americans here? Any British? Nobody? All right. Well, I'm American. My Osborne is not spelled with a U, so that literally makes me an American, right? Usually the British people use the U, right? When you're spelling color, instead of Color, Colour, right? So my Osborne doesn't have a U, so I'm American. So I'm going to give you the American standard. All right. So for Class C fires, Americans will tell you that it's electrical energized equipment. So all of your electrical equipment that can burn, the Americans will classify it as Class C. The British would classify it as gases. All right. The British will tell you that if an electrical equipment is on fire and you turn off that electricity, it means that something else is on fire, not necessarily the electricity. So they do have different ways of classifying fires, British as opposed to American. As you know, everybody wants to be different. For the Class D fires, it's combustible metals. And you won't experience that type of fire unless you work in industries where you deal with a lot of metals. All right. And of course, our Class K is our industrial kitchen fires. All right. And you do have special extinguishers for this type of fire as well. All right. You mainly find Class K fires in like your KFC, your Burger King, probably your Tasty and your Mother's, right? Because they use a thing called lard to do their frying and their cooking. It takes a lot of heat, and it requires a special type of fire extinguisher to put out that heat. Right? I have a coworker who once, well, it's sad, but he once placed some water. He went to a KFC, I think it was a KFC fire, a couple years ago, many moons ago, when I was a boy, right? And he managed to put some water on a kitchen fire, on oil. Yeah, he's still alive, but he has a lot of scars to show for that. All right, you were saying something. All right. So if you do have a kitchen fire, I would implore you not to use water. All right. You can cover the pot with the pot cover. If you don't have a pot cover, with a wet kitchen towel will do, right? Or a little baking soda, a little salt, right? If you want to use, if you want to go as far as using dirt, that's okay. But cover the pot if needs be. All right. So those are your classes of fires. Anybody remember them? All right. A, B, C, D, and K. All right. I would like to show you guys how to use a fire extinguisher. But before we get to the fire extinguisher, Um, I'm just going to jump into a few common causes of fire. One of the most common cause of fire here in Jamaica is faulty electrical wiring, right? And I know that from time to time, I don't think anybody here in the congregation is borrowing electricity from JPS, right? But from time to time, we may borrow a little bit of electricity from JPS, right? And we may not do it correctly if there's a correct way to borrow electricity, right? But if we must borrow some electricity, please get your certified electrician to do those wiring, right? Do not use your bona fide electrician. All right? Yes. Don't use the bona fide one. Use the certified one. Right? The bona fide one, he will do the work, it will cost you less to do the work, but it may end up costing you more in the long run. All right. So use your certified electrician and not your bona fide electrician. All right. So again, faulty electrical wiring is one of the major um, contributing factors to fires here. We drive sometimes and we see a lot of cobwebs onto the poles, running from homes to the poles. Right. We want to try to avoid those things. It's not the wisest of choice, all right, to borrow electricity in that manner, all right. And even at home, apart from borrowing electricity from JPS, your electrical wiring, you want to check those probably every 5 years to see if everything is intact, just the same, because the wires, they weren't meant to last forever. They weren't meant to last forever. Every 5 years, you should have your certified electrician check your wiring to see that it's still intact and still good for use. All right. We don't want to. If we do meet again, I don't want it to be a case where I'm fully in my bunker gears and you're outside in distress. All right. Another common cause of fire is cooking left unattended. Anybody cook this morning? Anybody's going home to cook? Anybody's tired? I heard retired all the time. Oh, all the time, all the time. All right, but one of the thing is if you're tired, because if you go home now, you had probably a long week. Even though they say today's the start of the week, but you had a long week last week, and you go home and you must cook. If you're tired, take a little bit of time to rest first. All right. I always use this example. It's not cooking for me. Most of the times, I'll go home. Like this morning, I got home probably after 4 this morning because I work events from time to time in terms of safety monitoring. And sometimes I go home early in the evenings. At times, I may put some clothes in the machine to wash, but it's the next morning I'm finished with those clothes. Can you imagine if it was cooking that I was doing? Right? I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here. So you have to be careful when you are tired and need to cook. Yes, we must eat and we want to have a nice Sunday dinner or anytime at all. Because you could go home from work and need to cook to provide for children, husband, wife, whatever the case may be. But if you're tired, please get some rest first before you start cooking. And sometimes we may have, the friends or the neighbors who come to visit us, have a little story to tell us. And, we may have the pot on the fire. So when the story get nice, you don't remember if the pot is on the fire, right? So, huh? That time, well, most of us, all of us don't have timers on the stove or the pot, on the phone. No, but no man. When your friend come call, you don't even pick up the phone, You go and talk to your friend, and your friend will tell a nice story, sweet outside a pop laugh, yeah, and don't remember that the pot is on the fire until you start smelling something, right? And sometimes it might be a case whereby you even gone over the neighbor too, because they might call you outside and over to their side. and it's when the place is on fire that you realize. So cooking left unattended, one of those major causes of fires here again. I usually hate, when I was working shift, I usually hate the 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. shift because that's the time when we had a lot of house fires because people would leave their cooking unattended. All right. So if you must cook, please get some rest. Or if a friend call you, tell a friend to come help you cook and you and him have some conversation. All right. Smoke alarm. We're gonna get to those smoke alarms, because it's very much necessary. The smoke alarms, those are necessary for your sleeping areas. So inside your bedroom, sorry, it's wise to have a smoke alarm so that the slightest emission of smoke, it will pick it up and will give you an alarm to say that something is happening and you need to check on it. All right. Another common cause of fire is accumulated rubbish. I tell people I am happy that the minister decided to ban the scandalous bags and all those things because we usually have a lot of those in the homes. People usually have them in the cupboards, in the drawers, all over the place. But now that they're a bit banned, we don't have them as much, right? Newspapers. Some people have newspaper clippings from, let them say, Wappy Philip, right? From way back. But if you need to store these items, find a suitable area to store them. Don't try to have too much of these things because accumulating these things, it means that you're adding to your fire load. And if you add to your fire load, if there's a fire, it means that everything will go up in flames far quicker. All right. I I'm not going to touch it. Well, I have on my screen here smoking in bed, but I'm not going to. Well, let me touch on that one because I had an aunt, we used to, when I was younger, we went to Mormon church. But may her soul rest in peace. But she was in the church, but she was addicted. All right. So smoking in the bed, it's not a good practice. So if anybody is here, let me look around. Smoking in bed or smoking in at all, it's not good, right? So this is from doing that. All right. But it's another common cause of fires. All right. And of course, some of our bad habits. How many of us use electrical extension cords? How many of us use those? What do we use them for? Because extension cords are meant for temporary use only. But sometimes we have like the refrigerator, sometimes we need the microwaves plugged in, possibly AC sometimes, right? But those are made for temporary use. So if you're going to plug in, say, for example, a fan into an extension cord, fine, you plug it in, you use it, when you're finished, you unplug it. But it should not stay plugged in for a very long period of time because they were not made for that purpose. All right? So extension cords, and if you have your extension cords, don't run them under the rug, don't run them behind furniture, under the furniture, and those things. All right? They chafe easily, and if it's under the rug and you're constantly walking over it, it's going to chafe, and at some point you might have that carpet being on fire. All right, so be mindful of these things. And of course, arson is another common cause of fires here in Jamaica. Over the Gregory Park side, I know that a lot of times people, you know, firebomb people's house. And the thing is, the firebomb it and outside waiting for you to come out. And if you come out, you know what happens next. And if you stay in, you know what happened. All right. So those are some common causes of fires. All right. In terms of prevention, let's not burn rubbish in open spaces. Burning is illegal. All right. It is an illegal act to burn in open spaces. If you must burn, you're supposed to apply for a permit for burning. All right. You're not supposed to burn in open space. I know sometimes you might have a little bit of trash, chop down a tree, some limbs, you might want to burn it to get rid of it. It's not the correct thing to do. All right, sparks can travel up to a spark can travel over a mile. And your neighbor might just have some nice shingle roof, just waiting. So be careful of how you burn rubbish. All right. Don't leave the irons, the hot plates, those things plugged in. Right. If you use them, turn them off and unplug them. All right. Many times you may plug in our irons with it on, and we see that spark. Yeah, you want to turn off your iron first before you have it actually plugged in. All right. All your equipment should be turned off first. Plug it in, turn it on, turn it off, unplug. All right. And of course, you want to allow air to circulate around your electrical equipment, your refrigerator, your microwave, and those things. If you have those things, you want to allow for air to circulate around those things. You don't want to have the heat building up around it. All right. Of course, if you have electrical cords that are damaged, replace them. You know, you go place there, you see a whole heap of black tape on the car. Extension cord have a lot of black tapes, you know. Body want a piece neat, you know, something so a piece burn off, you slice it, and you attach it and you black tape it up. Now, if it's damaged, replace it. Alright? It's better that way. You don't want to piece neat and then it starts shocking you or you put it somewhere where it's going to catch something on fire. Alright, so if it's damaged, replace it. All right. The final thing I'll touch on before we go. I know you guys want to go and have that lovely Sunday dinner cooked. I'm not sure who's going to invite me for dinner today, but all right. But in terms of an emergency plan, do we have an emergency plan for our church? Do we have an emergency plan for our homes? Do we have an emergency plan at work? So what happened to home and church? Why is it only work? You don't think it's important to have an emergency plan at home? All right, so it's very important to have an emergency plan for any space that you occupy, right? You can be here now and it might not necessarily be a fire, but you can have an earthquake. We've been having earthquakes, right? We've been having a lot of earthquakes recently. So you want to have an emergency plan that will tell you what to do, where to go when there's an emergency. Not just for workplace, not just for church, but for your home as well. If something should happen in the middle of the night and you're not able to reach to one of your rooms or reach to one of your family members, they will know exactly where to go if there's an emergency. All right? So you need to have an emergency plan, one that is effective. And you must practice it. Because if you do have an emergency plan and you don't practice it, it means that you won't know if it will ever work. Right? So create scenarios at home, at church, at workplace, so you can practice your emergency plan. Practice getting out of the building in a safe manner. All right? Create different scenarios. If there's a fire here, where will you go? What will you do? And I'm hoping that everybody does have more than one exit out of their home. I know that we like to, for security purposes, we like to grill. Anybody here grill the entire house? Veranda, windows, doors, outside, inside. Huh? Well, I want to tell you, it's the security measure. I know for security reasons we want to grill everywhere, right? But if you have grills on the windows, on the doors, chances are if there's an emergency, you might trap yourself. So what I would advise is that if you have windows grilled, at least have one or two where it is hinged and have a padlock on it. All right. So if there's an emergency and you can't go back on the outside or go through the door, that grill, and you can simply pull that padlock, open it, and go through your window. All right. And for those of us who have keys on a bunch, we have a lot of keys. I have a coworker when I look on his side on his hip, keys from like this amount of keys. I'm asking, what are you doing so many keys? Some you probably don't even use. Some you probably doesn't even know what they're for. So for your home, you want to have your keys on a single file, your emergency key on a single file. Because if there's an emergency and you want to get out, you see when panic sleeping, trust me, even if it's the right key, you're going to keep trying different keys. Now, if it's only a single key, if it doesn't work at the first try, you're going to continuously try that key, right? You're going to continue trying that key because you know it's the correct key. But if you have 5 different keys on the bunch, even though you know it's the correct key, you're going to try the rest of the keys. And that will take away some amount of time from you. And I've been to fires personally where it's at the grill you find people. At the grill, right? And I would never want that to happen to any one of us here. So if you have a lot of keys, separate them. Have your emergency keys. If you want to have, for example, a bunch of keys for you to take out, fine, but have at least an emergency key situated near your exit. So that if there's an emergency, you can open the padlock or the door quickly and get out, right? Because that's the main purpose in terms of fire safety, getting out. You know, having the fire extinguisher is good, having the smoke alarm is good, but getting out is even more important than having those things. Right? So an emergency plan is very important for the home, office, workplace, and church nonetheless. All right. For your fire extinguishers, how many of us know how to use a fire extinguisher? None? What if there's an emergency at church? Oh, see, bridging around at the back, I go run, come up and bridging in front, you go run, come up and use it, right? But we won't have any emergency at church, all right? But it's good to have these. So I'm going to just quickly walk you through the steps. And if at any point in time you are passing a fire extinguisher, you can look at it because the instructions are on it as well, all right? So this is really the body of the fire extinguisher. You have the operating lever up top here. You have the carrying handle here, the data plate with all the information that you need. And this little magic needle right here is your safety locking pin. This right here is your gauge. And it will tell you if your fire extinguisher is working or not. All right? Once it's in the green line is in the yellow line is in the green area, it means that it's in perfect working condition. All right? So if you want to use your fire extinguisher, sorry, it's pretty simple. So you're going to pull your safety pin. All right? So you pull your safety pin or your locking pin. You aim the hose, the nozzle, at the base of the fire, not on top of it, not the top of the flames, the base of whatever is burning. So you aim it at the base of the fire. You squeeze your operating lever. And you sweep from side to side. All right? So you pull your safety pin. You aim your nozzle at the base of the fire. I don't want my friends over there see me as well. All right. You can hear me, right? All right. So you're going to pull your safety pin or your locking pin. You're going to aim the nozzle at the base of the fire, whatever is burning. You're going to squeeze your operating lever. Don't want to squeeze it now, I don't want to mess up church. All right, and you sweep from side to side. All right, so if you're using a fire extinguisher, you want to stay at least 6 to 8 feet away, and then you work your way in. All right, if you're on the outside and you're using your fire extinguisher, always ensure that the wind is blowing into your back. So you're upwind. You don't want the wind to blow into your face. Everything will be coming back at you, right? And if you're inside and using a fire extinguisher, always ensure that your back is to the exit. All right? Your back is to the exit. Always ensure that you know where you're going to get out. If you don't see a way out, don't try to use the fire extinguisher. Try to find your way out first. All right? Because you might start using a fire extinguisher. One, it might not work. Two, it might not be enough to put out the fire. And then you're trapped trying to find a way out. Try to find your way out first. All right? And as we always say, if you're not sure or you're in doubt, just get out. All right? Don't try to use it if you're in doubt. If I had a CO2 I would be able to actually demonstrate the use of it. But because of this one, if I use this one, it's going to mess up the place, and two, um, you have to have it serviced. All right. All right. So that, in a nutshell, is your fire safety tip for today, or tips, and your safety message for today. Are there any questions? Are there any burning questions that you may have? Ah, thank you, thank you. Your member is saying condolence to. We lost a member on Friday night, an accident. So, thank you. And I'm not sure if you guys heard the news. The young lady that we lost, her brother, we lost her brother in 2022 as well, similar car crash. All right. So, do we have any questions? I didn't hear. Yes, well, once you place them in any form of conduits, they usually last a bit longer than having them exposed. All right, and the conduit, it's always good to have those electrical wires in conduits, because what they do is, if there should be a fire, the conduits, they will melt and form a blanket over those wires and really put out that fire. All right, so it's good to have them in conduits instead of having them running loosely. All right. That as well, if you have rats. All right, that is good as well for rats. Any other questions? Any burning questions? Anything that, oh, the outlets? Okay. The breaker? All right. So if you're not when you're leaving home, if there's some amount of circuits that you're not using, then you can always turn off those breakers. If you actually know which one, turn off the different areas. And as you spoke about the extension cords, I do hope we don't have anybody putting extension cords into extension cords into extension cords. They're trying to stretch the light. All right, because many a times we may buy an extension cord with about probably 5 or 4 outlets. So we use 3 to do the fan, the TV, the radio, and then the fourth one, we plug another extension into it, and then into that extension we have the fridge, we have the AC, we have the microwave, and then for the next one we have a next extension. That is overloading. All right, at some point you're going to have a fire, so please don't do that. It wasn't designed for that purpose. No, the surge protector is different, but as long as you don't put other things into the surge and extending that electricity, all right, or try to extend it. All right, so if you have a fire, it's best to call the fire department first. If if you call the police, and it's best to have the number for the fire station closest to you, all right, because you'll get a quicker response. The truck will be here quicker than if you call, say, a 119 or 110. If you call 119, it means that the police will have to take your information. You would need to figure out where you're calling from and where to send that call to. Chances are he will send it to the headquarters, and then if it's not for the headquarters to respond, they will now call a trench town or a halfway tree for them to respond. All right. So if you know the number for the fire station closest to you, which is halfway tree, and the number is 926-8166. All right, the number is 926-8166. So you should always have that on speed dial just in case you have an emergency. All right. So it's best to have the number for the fire station closest to you so you can get a quicker response. All right. And remember, sometimes when you call, the truck might not be available there because halfway tree it covers the widest area in Kingston and St. Andrew. We go all the way up to Mavis Bank in St. Andrew. Yes. All right. And we only have one unit at halfway tree. Yes, you can lobby for us to get more fire stations. Yes, yes. That's what I heard a while ago. All right. All right, so usually the fire safety companies do have fire extinguishers. You have quite a number of them. You can probably Google, or if you still have your directory, you can use your yellow pages to find the safety companies. No, they're not the same. We do have different types. This one is a ABC. It can be used on three different classes of fires, A, B, C, as well as you have the one specific for the kitchen, and you have the CO2, which is the carbon dioxide, which is best for class B and C fires. This one, if you use it now, you will have to do some cleaning up because it has powder in it that looks like a little bit like cornmeal. While the CO2 is gas, so you can use it, use it, use it, use it. It doesn't leave any residue. All right, but this one might be a bit more effective at home for you. And this one is a bit, it costs less than the CO2 as well. Yes. So for this one, it has a diaphragm inside. So once you pierce the diaphragm, it means that you will have to have it serviced. As opposed to a CO2, where it's just gas under pressure. You use it until it is finished. All right. Use this one time, you have to get it serviced. All right. Any other question? But now I ask why we always come without water. I know that's always one of the questions that we get. But we always have water. I just want to clarify that we always have water. We're never out of water. Water is readily available. Did, didn't hear you.
You see a man will come with a truck. I think the party here said we have water. There's no water.
When? When?
The truck here, I mean the puncher.
When? When was that? When we had water issue? No man, we always have water in here. The problem is, or the thing is, when we arrive on a scene, persons might see us putting out the fire, and it might take probably like 5 to 10 minutes for the truck to be empty. We have a limited amount of water in the truck. We have like 500 liters in one of those units, and in quick time, it is finished. So sometimes you might arrive there a little bit late and think that we don't have any water, but we had water and it's finished. If the hydrants don't have water in them, then a pumper truck or a water truck will come and assist us. But we always have water. We don't go to fires without water.
How often do you service the hydrants?
All right. So we do have a hydrant team that goes around, check the hydrants, service them. But what we ask citizens to do is to, if you see a hydrant that is in need of probably a little bit of repair, you don't think it has been checked in a while, you're not sure if it's working, you can give us a call and we'll come and take a look at it for you to ensure that it's operational. All right. Any other questions? No? We're all good? All right. If there are no further questions, I would like to say thanks for having me. It was a pleasure being here. Thanks for being a great audience and for participating.
Mr. Osborne, the American. Thank you for your wonderful presentation this morning. We found it very informative. I must say, the first time I used one of these, I followed all the instructions clearly. But I was a young boy, and the feeling of power took hold of me.
Ah.
So not only was the fire extinguished, a number of co-workers were fireproof for the rest of the day. Mr. Osborne, on behalf of the parish, thank you very much.
Yep.
We continue to pray for you. Keep doing all the good that you can. God bless you.
Thank you, sir. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. This one is yours.
You're now on live stream.